You know what it is? Let's go Geeks Pod. What is the date today? We got October 24th. Looking at the Fury Ngannou fight on Saturday. Let's get into it. I'm here with my boys. We got Dano and Goosey in the cut. How we
What
doing?
up? What
Let's
up?
coming off a huge pay-per-view, bro. What are the feels here? What are you guys doing?
A lot of hot topics coming out of UFC 294. I think obviously we got to start up top. Volk Islam. I mean, not always how it was going to play out in terms of Islam hitting him with a head kick, but Volk was not prepared. You could see it in his body. He played the part well, but I don't think he really had the best chance of winning that fight, regardless of if that head kick connected or not. What do you have on that?
What was your thoughts on that? I know you kind of called that. You were all over Islam. I know we thought
Yeah,
spoke for a second, but you were like, no, boys, I don't know.
yeah, I was definitely on Islam, but it sucks to see Volk go out like that. But it's just like looking back on it, hindsight's always 2020. Volk, his body itself didn't look too good. Um, like we said, Islam had a full camp and everything, and it just really didn't all align with Volkanovski. It was kind of just like you knew it was gonna happen, but you didn't want to believe it, and ultimately that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, you know, looking at Volk's performances, like it's so hard to like see him getting knocked out. But like if you really look back, like we have seen him wobbled, and like there was a couple guys dropping videos about Islam and like some keys that he could really fix coming into this, which like we were talking about, he had the full camp. So it's like he really just needed to start firing off that back leg kick. And that was like, it seemed as simple as that because he hit him with it like three or four times in the body, made him drop that arm, and then just put him away. So Islam, mad respect. I mean, he definitely earns a spot at the top of the pound for pound rankings. I mean, this guy is a problem. Like, I know a lot of Charles fans out there, with their eyes on Islam. That's scary shit. Like he is not going to be any easier than he was the first time. So that matchup's crazy. And then we look at the co-main, which is kind of like a flip thing because Kamaru Usman comes out and kind of looks really good. Like in respect to just like his physique and his stamina and that kind of stuff. He didn't really look like a guy that took the fight on 10, 11 days notice. He ends up going to a barn burner decision, very questionable, very controversial decision, but Hamzat gets the win here. He improves to 13-0, and now people are thinking title shot. Some people are saying maybe he doesn't deserve a title shot. Whole lot of things going around about that. My personal opinion is yeah, he didn't beat a true 185er. So, it all comes down to what Dana thinks. But I mean, I think the matchup's kind of out there. I think him versus Strickland is the fight to make. What's the biggest problem? If he's not ready for 85, he's gonna lose the title fight. That's my whole thing with it. Obviously he doesn't deserve this, he doesn't deserve that, but we know how the UFC works. We know how these money fights work. He's the biggest draw. So I see him in a title fight next, whether he beats Strickland or not. Tough matchup, but that first round's gonna be a tell-all. So what's your kind of your biggest takeaways, Goosey? You can kind of rip this one off coming off that
Yeah,
main event.
for sure. The co-main, I mean, it was a banger. It was definitely my most hyped fight of the card, and I think it lived up to that. If you ask me to score the fight personally, I would have gave it a draw, but I can see how it's one of those things where in a coin flip round, you're going to kind of give the guy that had the more dominant parts of the fight overall. You look at it, if it's just a street fight, Hamzat wins. No rounds, no criteria. But you put the rounds in, you break it down. I do think round one was a 10-8. They were close rounds after that. Usman probably did a little bit better with the striking, but um, the scores reflected that. I really don't have a problem with that. What's next for Usman? Who knows? Hopefully he gets a decent fight at 185. Someone that he can kind of bounce back with, at least put himself in position for a title shot. I think Hamzat, you got to give him one of the big three in terms of personalities at 185, and that would be Strickland, Adesanya, or Paulo. This isn't about rankings and getting to a title shot. He's either getting a title shot or he needs one more. Either way, put him in a fight with a personality that sells and builds really both guys, because the UFC can benefit some of that Hamzat hype right now.
Facts. And dude, I know we were talking a little bit about who's next for Usman, who's next for Chimaev, but that Usman Whitaker fight would be insane at 85. It's interesting to see if he stays there. Dano, what was kind of your biggest takeaway on that co-main?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit of a bold take, and I'll say other than the W that Usman got, he got a lot of L's coming into his future because of what we saw on last Saturday. And what I mean by that is he won his fight at a co-main of a pay-per-view. So you got to think he's going to go somewhere else other than that. If it's not the main event of a pay-per-view, which would be a title fight, which doesn't look like it because he got ranked 9, he's probably going to go maybe back into the main card of a pay-per-view, which I think he should because that's a 3-round fight. If he main cards a fight night, maybe say main card, main event fight night of Sweden or of wherever the heck they want to go next. That's a 5-round fight. We've seen Hamzat struggle with these cardio issues a little bit here and there, and we definitely saw him slow down in rounds 2, in rounds 3 against Usman. I think that's going to open up a lot of eyes of middleweight guys where it's like, hey, let me survive round 1. Let me maybe survive round 2. If I'm in a 5-round fight with Hamzat, get him into deep waters. We will drown him from there. I think that's what people are seeing. I've noticed the gas tank is an issue for him. If he does have a fight night main event, or God forbid he gets the title fight against Strickland, I think we're going to see a lot of people start to turn on Hamzat a little bit just for that flaw.
Yeah, no, you look at it, I don't know if it's a cardio issue as much as overexertion the first 5 minutes, because in terms of dangerous fighters in the UFC in the first round, I would say probably Sergey Pavlovich is number 1, but Hamzat is on that short list of the most dangerous guys for the first 5 minutes in the UFC. And that definitely comes at a cost of output and just overall tenaciousness in the last couple rounds for him. But we'll see. I think mentally he doesn't break. It's just his body starts slowing down because he's still in there. He's still willing to trade. Some guys, you see him get that tired and really check out. So I think Hamzat it's probably a energy management issue more than a cardio issue at whole.
Yeah, and another thing too is he hasn't fought in a year, so and I'm not even going to give him an excuse here because I'm actually about to take a little bit away. He's at the Tiger Muay Thai. He's over there. He's hitting pads. All you do is see him hitting pads and getting these sparring rounds on Instagram and these social media platforms. And then, that fight, yeah, he looked a little bit more like composed on the feet, as opposed to a guy who's just like marching forward towards Gilbert, like throwing haymakers. But I mean, you don't see that like high level technical stand up that you really get at these top of these divisions. Obviously he stood there with Usman for 2 rounds, and you can argue that that's impressive in itself. But just the proof is kind of in the pudding, and he's not really out there throwing combinations. He's kind of shooting from far away. Like he's got a lot of things to work on. But the fact that he did that to Usman in round 1, there is a very, very, very low percentage of athletes on this roster that can weather that storm. So I'm very interested to see what's next for him and kind of how his coaching maybe takes a turn or maybe he does take that mental leap. But yeah, definitely a lot of things for Hamzat going forward that people need answers from. Let's get into this next one. We got Johnny Walker and Magomed Ankalaev. This guy, Magomed, is the most cursed fighter I've ever seen because he actually might be the best 205er on the roster. He actually might be the best guy in the roster, but he literally cannot get a win, cannot get a break for anything. He goes to another no contest here with Johnny Walker after Johnny Walker tells the ref there's like some verbal, miscommunications. Oh, I'm in the desert. Oh, okay. He doesn't know where he's at. Like, I heard a couple recaps. It doesn't make much sense. Even Dana's going at the ref. Just super unfortunate. We didn't really get to see anything in this fight. I mean, I feel like the only thing we got from it was that it was going to end in the next couple minutes, the way that they were going at each other. But what's kind of the takeaways here? Because this guy Ankalaev, like, you got to get him back in there. You got to get him fights because he really is that good. Like, you see him, he's technical as shit at 205. Dano, what was kind of your takeaway? I know we were on Johnny Walker, but what do you think about that whole mess?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Ankalaev. Like you said, I do believe he's one of the top 205ers in the division. He's pretty much one of those guys where he's really good everywhere. But he just has these couple instances where he goes to the draw or he has that illegal shot, like you were saying, weird ref scenario. He just can't catch a break. I think he's one of those guys, especially since he's at the top of the division. Dana's got to go, hey, stick with us. You can't let him leave because, like we've been saying, he is one of the top guys, and he's just things aren't going his way right now. But you got to keep going. He's not like some unranked guy where it's like, hey man, we tried, stuff didn't work out. Good luck. I think Ankalaev, if he does figure it out, I think he will beat Johnny Walker. I believe they will be matched up next. Maybe the China card coming up soon because they didn't really take too much damage. That was early-ish on in the first round. I'm sure they both want to get paid. They want to go at it. So if that does get rescheduled, I believe Ankalaev will come out with a dub and look to go for that title.
Yeah. And Goose, before you take your run on this one, that should have been a Johnny Walker by DQ,
Yep.
right? Like 100%. Like that was a clear illegal strike. I'm Ankalaev, we're singing his praises, but knee was clearly down. This isn't like one of the Tim Elliott fight that we saw. This is clear as day, illegal shot. This ends in a DQ 100% of the time. Why it was not called that, I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that obviously Johnny Walker very entertaining. Personally, I thought Ankalaev was getting the better shots off, but then again, Johnny Walker's a guy that only needs one. He's one of the biggest, most athletic 205 pounders. Other than that, I mean, there's not much to talk about in the fight aside from the refs and judging situation because the judges were all right, but the doctor was horrible the whole card. Um, Obviously a little bit of a language barrier, but what's he thinking? Like you stop a fight that early. Honestly, I think he thought he was benefiting Ankalaev a little bit just because he was definitely not messing with Johnny Walker. I think definitely Johnny Walker should have got that done by DQ because obviously illegal strike. He was down, he knew he was down and just ripped knee to chin bone. And honestly, I don't know how Johnny Walker ate it given his chin like what we've seen from him over his career, but he was not phased really at all. So kind of impressive is Johnny Walker back chin moment. Either way, bad doctor is the situation of that fight. Dana, what do you got?
You covered it. I was gonna say one thing that Johnny Walker has kind of been his weakness, right? He's some 6'6", 6'7", huge ass dude in this division. Got pop. He's pretty good on the ground. What's his one flaw is that chin, and we saw him eat that knee to the chin to where he didn't even really react. It's kind of whoever was refing that. The ref saw it, stopped in, and Johnny Walker's like, "Oh yeah, that is illegal. What the heck?" Because he didn't Aljo it, excuse me. He didn't go on the ground crying. He was up. He was, I'm good. Like we might see a new mythical fighter unlocked with Johnny Walker.
Yeah, for sure. And then I mean, I'm looking down through the card. Not honestly the craziest card. I mean, not any crazy finishes that need to be really talked about. When Aliskerov came out, put away Walry Alvarez, exactly how he should have. I mean, I think he was minus 650. That was to no surprise. I think everyone was kind of just, if you had an Alves ticket, you had like a round one guillotine ticket for like plus 75,000 in your pocket, and you were just like hoping on a shooting star. Sedner Magomedov came out, hit a Gilly Furta. I mean, he's got a nasty ninja choke. Don't shoot on him. Lesson learned. But then let's talk about this one real quick before we bounce topics. Shara Magomedov, first fight of the night against Bruno Silva, a guy that we kind of doubted. Not gonna lie, we doubted him a little bit. He had some sketchy wins on his record. Besides having close to zero wrestling, this guy's a problem on the feet, bro. This guy throws kicks like he's trying to break your leg with every single kick. What was your kind of take, Daniel? You can start with this one. What's your takeaway here? Because this guy's dangerous as hell. Obviously, we see his flaws, but moving forward, like this guy's gonna bring on some great fights for the people.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm gonna go on the other end of that, where I think that we saw his big flaw in the takedown defense against Bruno Silva, who is not a takedown guy. Especially in this division, I feel like there's a lot of guys who aren't too flashy, aren't too fun to watch, and he's gonna run into these guys where they have no problem wet blanketing him for 3 rounds. If he can't stop the takedown and get to that explosive striking that we've seen, it's going to be a big problem for him. And I'm really worried about that going forward.
Yeah, obviously I feel like they can play the cards correctly in a sense where it's like give them like I saw someone offer up like a Roman Kopylov. That would be one hell of a matchup between
Yep.
those Russians. But yeah, definitely could get exposed here by somebody better than Bruno. Goosey, what was your take on the monster of a man that walked in there?
I mean, Shara, he definitely has that dog in him. You could see that. He was definitely willing to trade, and he put on an impressive fight. I think that he will put on entertaining fights as long as the UFC kind of gives him those matchups, because he doesn't shy away from it. He wants action. The best part of his game is distance striking, a lot of kicks. The inside boxing isn't great, and the wrestling definitely has holes. But if you give him a stand-up guy, he's going to put on bangers, which is definitely rare style coming from Dagestan. I think he's interesting. And yeah, I thought that was a very good fight.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's get right into this one. This is the big event of the weekend. We got Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou. We talked about it a little bit on last week's pod, but we'll get into a little bit more details here because we're learning more and more about the fight. It's a 24 by 24 size ring that they're going to be fighting in, which is interesting because it's like the bigger one, which is Tyson Fury kind of putting in his little piece there where it's like I'm going to need my room to facilitate. So that's an interesting factor to think about. I'm thinking that Tyson Fury is kind of just going to have his way in this matchup. Even in an aerial interview Francis just had, he said, like, how's this fight finish, man? You going to knock him out? And even Francis hesitated to say that he was going to knock out Tyson Fury, which is definitely not something that you want to see a guy say a week away from his fight in a fight where you feel like that's the only way he can kind of win. So, looking at it from an outsider's perspective, yeah, we'll be tuned in. We'll be dialed, but I'm just like I said before, I'm just hoping Francis can hold his own because every way that I've envisioned this fight, it doesn't go well for Francis. So what's kind of your rip on this one? Dano, you kind of take the wheel on this. What do you see this fight panning out to be? Round 1 through what is it? 12-round fight, 8-round fight?
I think 12, I want to say.
Man, I don't know, but what I keep thinking on is I said it last week how these fights just I'm not sold on them till I'm sold on them. And let's see, we saw with the Logan Paul Dylan Dennis fight, we saw early footage of Dylan Dennis sparring. He looked bad. We saw Nate Diaz sparring. He didn't look too great for the Jake Paul fight. And people are going, "Oh, this is planned. This is them showing us bad footage to where we go, oh, it's not good." So that we can't really expect what's to come fight night. Then we get to fight night, and it's kind of the same as what we saw in the footage. It's not the best. It's not what we were expecting. It's not what we were hoping for. Francis has put out some footage of him kind of just going slow. It's powerful for sure. I mean, it is Francis Ngannou, but it's not what Tyson Fury has gone up against. It's not what Tyson Fury is. So I think this is going to be another one of where it's just going to be like, don't expect too much. Of course, the power is going to be there for Ngannou, but Fury does this. Fury's battle tested, and especially with his brother and all the chaos and shit show you could say of last week, he knows what realm this is, and he knows he wants to stay out of that. Of course, he has that fight coming later in December, so I think he's going to make work of this one. He's going to stay safe, and he's going to win. So give me Fury, of course.
Just confirmed it is 10 3-minute rounds. And as much training as Francis wants to do, I mean, it is pure science that when you are that strong and you've got that much muscle mass, you slow down. So I'm interested to kind of see if this fight he does jump out the gate, because I feel like, a lot of people are saying that's his best chance. Just kind of exert, pull a Hamzat type thing, get after it now, because if you think you're going to do anything 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you are sadly mistaken. But Well, it's gonna be interesting. Let's see how he comes out. Goosey, what do you got on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be tuned in. I think that the odds are correct. However many times out, like 9 times out of 10, Tyson Fury's gonna go in there and beat him. But as we see with these MMA UFC matchups, like Conor was getting to Floyd's chin, and Ngannou's a guy unconventional, not the common boxer defense is made for. And Ngannou's probably going to get his way inside at points and make this interesting. And he might clip him because all it takes with Ngannou is one shot. I don't think that a few extra ounces of padding is going to switch that. And yeah, but as a whole, I mean, he's got to do it in the first three. Outside of 9 minutes in there, he's going to be sucking wind and getting it put on him. I don't think this fight goes past 5. I think either way, Ngannou or Fury is going to knock him out. I would assume it's going to be Fury knockout. I'll say round 5 or 6.
Yeah, that's an interesting take because, off of what Danny says, it's like Tyson's probably definitely going to be the superior boxer, moving around, getting away from those big overhands and all that kind of stuff he's coming with. So, and he does already have a fight lined up. So that does make you think like he might just dance. He might just dance, jab, poke, and kind of do what he's got to do to get out of here with a clean face, because biting down your mouthpiece against Francis Ngannou in the pocket, as easy as that might sound to just put him down real quick, I don't think that's exactly, business wise going to be the best move for a guy like that. Looking down the rest of the card, I'm not too familiar with the boxing scene, but we do have a handful of undefeated fighters like a Fabio Wardley, who's 16-0. He's fighting a 12-0 David Adeli. So, I mean, if you're tuned in for the majority of the card, you'll see some good boxers on here. It's not like these celebrity bouts where it's just like a whole bunch of bums that are just filled up at the bottom. It's good talent. So I'm interested to see how that kind of all pans out. While we're on this topic, Dylan Danis gets released from Bellator finally. He says he wants to go to the UFC and he's calling Dana's name. I see a world, sadly, I do see a world where he does land in a big promotion, just given what he can kind of sell, but that is a liability and a half. So that's a big risk to take as any big promotion. And I'm not sure if that's one that they're exactly willing to take, but I feel like he's willing to take like not a lot of money is the other side of that. So it might be worth it in that regard. Dano, what's kind of your take on Dylan Danis with a free agency tag on his head?
I don't think he should be in the UFC, right? We haven't seen him in years and years and years, and all we've heard about it is how good he is, but we haven't seen how good he is. I'm afraid that he is going to get signed in the UFC, especially with all this Conor McGregor waiting game that we've been doing, because all he's got to do is, hey, Dana, I'll come back if. I'll come back for this pay-per-view if you sign Danis. Like you said, CEO, I was worried that Dana's not going to budge. He's going to sign Danis at a 10 for 10, 20 for 20, somewhere at a low beginner range. And if Danis is able to take it and thinking back on it, he might just be down to take it. There's a good chance that he'll end up in the UFC. Who knows where? It would be hard for me to see him get into the UFC and then automatically go to a fight night Apex undercard. It would have to be a high stakes, a lot of people calling for Dana's head if this happens. But I could see it happening.
Yeah, it's so funny too because he's on Twitter and he's like, man, if I come to the UFC, you got to give me an easy fight first, and he'll like tag like Kevin Holland. Like, yo, what are you saying, bro? But Goosey, what's kind of your take here? Because there's not just UFC. I mean, there's PFL that's trying to grow, and there's Bellator, I guess, is still on the map right now. So I mean, I guess he just left Bellator, but I mean, there's other options out there. I guess he could do high level jujitsu too.
Yeah. I got 3 options here actually. One just popped up, and I'll say it first was I could see him being the guy to fight Jake Paul MMA in the PFL. If this thing falls through with Nate Diaz, I think he's looking at guys who are credible in the MMA community that are also beatable for him. And I think that, I mean, we saw Danis's takedown offense in a boxing match. He got stuffed by Logan. I think Jake sees that. likes that. I think he likes the matchup on the feet. So there's definitely an option. I could see the UFC, but it's like a lot that goes into it. You probably would get him and put him right on a pay-per-view. I don't know if he's that level of fighter right now in MMA. And then another option, I saw that Logan Paul was talking a bunch of crap at Danis at a WWE event. I could see him getting into the pro wrestling scene. He's big into that. You see it. He's always repping the merch and stuff. So I could see WWE or AEW as an option for sure. I don't know. You guys even think about that yet?
That's a good point. But I mean, to Danny's point as well, like he does, dude, he's tied with Connor and he's tied with that management team, which is the same management team as Connor's, and they do have a great relationship. So I mean, it's not like he's not getting pitched. You know what I'm saying? Like he's in the right hands where it's like they deal with these promotions. So I mean, talks are happening. It's just I wonder how they're going. You know what I'm saying? Like it's interesting to know if these promotions are willing to even engage in this conversation or if they're just like not here, bud. You know, that's kind of the biggest thing because like I was kind of hinting at, I feel like he's willing to do things for not a lot of money right now. Like, he's really trying to hold on to this whole clout wave he's got. So really interesting to see that. WWE would be a bizarre crowd only because he's so inappropriate and a lot of like the audience over there. But it could work for like a one-off. Maybe one of these big promotions wants to sign him to like single fight contracts or something like that. Just wants to use him in like one big spot. Could be interesting. Let's talk about something we got going on tomorrow real quick. We got slap fight. You guys were telling me a little bit about somebody you're excited to see on this card. I know it's going to be the only combat sport in action tomorrow live on Rumble. So we'll be tuned in. Tell me a little bit more about that guy. Dano, you were telling me a little bit about his posture.
Yeah, let me just set what we got going on tomorrow. CEO said it perfectly. This is like the only combat sport we got on. MLB playoffs is going to be not going to be on tomorrow. NFL is not going to be on tomorrow. Of course, we're going to have doing UFC. Power slap at like 9 p.m. We got Terp Daddy Slim going for a huge mega fight. I'm pretty sure it's against Wolverine. I should have double checked that. Guy with a big old beard. And Terp Daddy, he's one of those guys where he's not going to be standing here like this. He's going to be having his chin back. He's going to be crazy eyeing the guy who's slapping him. He's going to be screaming. He's entertainment. He's not elite fighter. He is a slapper. He's a power slapper, and that's what you're going to get. A big old boy hiding his chin from the slaps and bringing a lot of heat on the other side. He is must-watch TV, especially because Bisbing is the commentator for this power slap, and he gets a total kick out of it. You would imagine that he's sitting there with a couple beers because he's laughing the whole time. He loves Turpin. He's always joking when Turpin comes on. It is a fun time.
That's hilarious. And Dana White's already bragged. I know that I think it was his last press conference, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago. He was saying like, make sure you tune in because I just bought and invested so much money into the what's it called? Into the
Production.
into the production. He's like, you'll never see a show like this. Like, so I mean, we're gonna get some crazy angles tomorrow night too. Goosey,
Yeah.
what's down on the slapping?
No, definitely. To me, like I'm not super well versed in it. I was kind of against it at first, but you see guys like Terp Daddy Slim, and I mean, dude loves it. He wants to go out there and perform in front of people. It's not like Dana's holding these guys at hostage or at gunpoint, making them sign contracts. He's giving these guys money. They're doing what they like. And I will say it is an entertaining show. It's kind of the train wreck factor, also kind of like the craziness of it. And I think that it's definitely going to be catching on here a little bit. He was saying it's like huge in India, and there are some big time Twitter, like I know Bussin' with the Boys is starting to go to these events and it's starting to gain traction. There's a reason Dana's pushing it. He's not in the business of losing money. So I think it'll be around for a little bit.
Yeah, as barbaric as it is, and like the psycho like looks that you'll get from people when you tell them that you watch power slap fighting. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. I think I've said it twice now, but I mean, it is like you can't miss it. Like when a guy's just standing there waiting for a haymaker, it's like you're not turning away from the TV. Like that's the last thing you're doing, you know? And it's like they got the people back there catching them and stuff. Like, this is safe. This is safe, you know? So that's interesting. But we did just do an interview. Just keep turning topics here. We just ran an interview with Mason Jones. So make sure everyone goes, drops a like, comment, subscribe on that, because he's the absolute boy and he's probably the hottest free agent on the market right now. So talking about announcements and guys who are going to go places, look for Mason Jones either to re-enter the UFC or get back into the PFL or, you know, do something. So he's got big things coming. Anything else, boys? We pretty much covered the action for the week.
Yeah, no, one thing, I'm wearing the shirt right now. Shout out Nico, the hybrid price, baby.
Let's go. The boy. And shout out Ant the Champ for going to 2-0 this weekend. He just got another win at Fury. He's going to be on the Geeks chat soon. So stay tuned for him. He's Bo Nichols' main training partner, brother for life. Those two are going to be taking over the UFC here in a couple years. So big things coming. Dano, you got anything you want to say before we sign out?
All good, man. We covered it.
Let's go. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Drop a like, comment, subscribe on this one. Catch us next week. Geeks Pod. We out.